Welcome, everyone. My name is Dean Daniels, and I'm honored to be on the board of the American Friends of the Parent Circle Families Forum. Our role is to help create awareness and to raise funds to support the work of the Parent Circle in Israel, Palestine, and around the world. I'm very happy to welcome you to today's webinar on the documentary Within the Eye of the Storm. During the next hour, you'll get to hear from the film's director, Shelley Hermon, and Parent Circle members Bassam and Rami and Rami Elhanan, the two men at the center of the storm. First, a little information on how this webinar will work. We'll start off by hearing from our featured guests. Then we want to get to your questions as well. Now, because we have more than 400 people who've registered for our session, we can't have everyone shouting their questions all at once. So to keep the background noise to a minimum, we'll mute all of your microphones during the session. There are two ways that you can send us your questions throughout the webinar. First, if you're using Zoom, then look at the bottom of your Zoom screen and you'll see the Q&A box. Click on that and that's where you can type your questions and then submit them. If you're joining by phone, you can email your questions to info@parentcirclefriends.org. That email address again is info@parentcirclefriends.org. Now I'm joined by Christopher Beachy, who is part of the American Friends team, and he'll be gathering your questions, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. Even before today, some of you have already sent your questions to us, and we've been collecting those as well. One more point, this webinar is being recorded. If you'd like to receive the link to that recording, please use the link that Christopher has posted in the chat box, which is next to the Q&A box, to receive updates from us. So, with that housekeeping out of the way, let's get on with the program. I'd first like to introduce Shelley Hermon, the director of Within the Eye of the Storm. Shelley's a very accomplished filmmaker who has produced more than 30 film projects that focus on minority groups, youth, women, and communities in conflict. This documentary follows two men, a Palestinian and an Israeli, whose young daughters are killed in the conflict. It's what these two men choose to do with this tragedy that makes it so compelling. So Shelley, first let me thank you so much for joining us today. It's very clear from your background why you chose a topic that involved the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But specifically, what was it about this particular story that attracted you to it?
So actually, in a way, the story evolved after I was attracted to the men. And I'll explain why. When I set out to make the documentary, the idea was to follow the combatants for peace, to really to get to know their work and to get a sense of, maybe I should take it back a bit further. For years, I wanted to do something about the conflict. It was clear to me that I wanted to explore the subject and that I wanted to give a perspective that was wider, that included the two sides. It's probably also to do with the fact that I grew up in the UK. I always had Palestinian and Arab friends. It was never an issue. There was always dialogue. And I always saw the value and the product of dialogue, like what it does. So it was clear to me that I wanted to explore the subject. And when I heard about Combatants for Peace, I was both fascinated by, but mainly inspired by the courage of a group of men to meet each other without knowing where it was going to go. Their first meeting, which I heard about shortly after it happened, they didn't even know whether they were gonna survive the meeting. They all knew that they had blood on their hands on both sides. So for me, it was really, okay, I'm following this group of people. Very quickly, I was drawn to Bassam. Something about his quiet charisma stood out, even though he didn't speak very good English at the time. It's improved a little, Bassam. And basically about 2-3 months after filming Bassam more closely and understanding that There is a story here, and I followed him and another Israeli guy. Bassam's daughter, Abir, was shot. So from that moment on, things took a turn, and I had no idea where it was going to go. I gave Bassam a period of time to, if you can, digest and see if he wants to continue with the film, how to continue. And after a period of time, Bassam said that he feels that it's not by chance that I started to film him before, and that we should go on, and that that people will see the truth of what's happened. And so I continue to film, and the friendship between Bassam and Rami was literally born in those moments. So I was just witness to that with a camera. And I remember the the first radio show that they did. I was there almost by chance, because I kept on ringing Bassam, you know, when is something interesting happening? When can I join? Da, da, da. He didn't tell me about the radio show. He didn't think it was important. I just happened to call him up to say, how you doing? And he said to me, oh, you know, tomorrow there's a radio show. Okay. So I show up with the camera as always. And I'm sitting there, and literally there was magic in the room. It was just, I you know, I had goose pimples throughout the session. And at the end of the session, I looked at both of them and I said, you do realize that a new film has just been born. I thought I was joking at the time, but that's actually the truth of what happened.
That's amazing, because the way you're describing this is because we've known them for so long, but I didn't know them back then. So this is sort of revealing, and it sort of ties into another thought I had as I was watching this latest version, was, you know, the title, Within the Eye of the Storm. I'm assuming that Bassam and Rami are the calm in the eye of the storm, despite everything swirling around them. And if you've spent any time with them, which you have, they're jokesters. It's like they're living a life with, like, they've completely not shut out or ignoring what's going on, but have found a way to elevate what's more important.
Exactly. It's exactly right. It took a long time to get to the title of the film. But really, it just seemed to be the essence of who they are and their story, and as you say, how they choose to deal with the biggest tragedy there is. I mean, nobody can even imagine.
Yeah. When I mean, I assume a lot of this happened as you were going through this, because you were so intimately involved as their stories were unfolding. Which is a remarkable technique anyway in documentaryism. But what did you learn? What did you take away from making this film?
You know, in many ways, what the process instilled in me is just more faith in the things that I'd already believed in. And I'll give an example. For me, really, the belief that dialogue is the only way, and that really we can overcome anything with dialogue, that, you know, the times when, because I also see it on a very basic level, if you simplify things from national to social to personal, if you look at it on a fundamental level, when you speak to someone, okay, and that person is initially barking at you, okay, they're barking at you, they're accusing you or whatever. Now, there are different ways to respond in that situation, okay? There's one way, which is to walk away. There is another way, which is to attack back. And there's another way to, first of all, listen. to listen, and from that point begin some dialogue. And very quickly in you know, from an early age, I was, as I said, exposed in England to, because I was interested clearly in the subject. So I went to a lot of events, you know, to do with the subject and with conflict resolution and whatever have you. And I was exposed to a lot of people on both sides and conversations and heated conversations. And not once or twice I was, you know, accused of things as an Israeli. And it was always so interesting, and it never failed when I was able to just stay still, listen, and first of all, see the other person, give them a sense that I see them, I hear them, I understand, and to take some responsibility for my side as an Israeli, to say, yes, there are things here that are wrong. You're absolutely right. And by the way, I think that if Israel as a nation would be able to apologize for certain things, we would already be in a different place. But here's the whole issue of victim mentality that I'm sure we'll get onto in the rest of the conversation. It's much trickier than we think to get to that point. So for me, coming in with that belief, the dialogue is the only way, and following these two remarkable men, seeing them do what they do, it didn't surprise me, the results. It's not like I learned anything totally new, but it totally reinforced everything I believed in. And that was the biggest blessing that I got from making this film. And I wanted to share the example. The example is the Jenin scene. Before we went to Jenin, honest to God, I had no idea what was going to happen. This is my first time meeting terrorists, right? Meeting people that we know have blood on their hands, okay? That any Israeli in their right mind would think I'm absolutely crazy to go there and meet them. And here I am with a camera. This is the one occasion, there were two occasions where I had a cameraman film because I wanted to have all eyes and ears fully present. And I didn't know what was gonna happen. And it was so remarkable, really, again, to see the proof, even in the harshest moments and in the most confrontational moments, to see how Rami's ability to be present, to hear them out, to recognize them as human beings, eye level, full conversation. At the end of the conversation, people that weren't able to talk to Israelis, in most cases didn't have the opportunity, but wouldn't be willing to, saying that, you know, it changed the perspective. And I mean, for me, okay, this, if that's not proof, what is?
I agree. I agree. I think we should bring Bassam and Rami into the discussion with us now, because they're not used to sitting in front of a without saying something. So, let me introduce them to you. Bassam Aramin lives in Jericho in the West Bank. At the age of 17, he was incarcerated and spent 7 years in an Israeli jail. He went on to study history and holds a master's degree in Holocaust studies from the University of Bradford, England. He became a member of the Parent Circle in 2007 after losing his 10-year-old daughter, Abir, who was killed by an Israeli border policeman in front of her school. Joining Bassam is Rami Elhanan, a seventh-generation Jerusalemite. He identifies himself as a Jew, an Israeli, and before everything else, a human being. On the first day of the school year in 1997, Rami's daughter Smadar was killed by two Palestinian suicide bombers who murdered 5 people that day. Rami joined the Parent Circle soon after the death of his daughter. For Rami and Bassam, and then Shelley, we'll get back into this, but this film was released back in 2012, and its message is so relevant today. Even watching it this week, I was just amazed at how relevant it is. So we're at about 8 years since it was first seen by an audience, and we're 10 years next month since the historic ruling in an Israeli court that found that the state was responsible for the death of Abir, Bassam's daughter. So Bassam and Rami, what has changed since 2012?
Brother Rami, what has changed? Rami know much better than me.
I'm afraid we are still in the eye of the storm. The storm is still going on. This morning, the Israeli police dismantled the demonstration near the house of the Prime Minister protesting the horrible management of our lives in all aspects. Corona is the tip of an iceberg, but everything in our lives is down to complete irresponsibility. And basically we are standing in the same place, except the fact that ever since then, we talked to many thousands of people. We got into many thousands of hearts. And we talked to students, we talked to Israelis, we talked to Palestinians. We reached out for so many people. And I think we managed to create some cracks in this wall of hatred and fear. Cracks that are very small, but a little light can come in through these cracks, and a little light can drive away a lot of darkness. And this is the essence of what we are doing. We are not losing ourselves. We are drawing water from the ocean with a little spoon full of little holes. But I believe we make a difference. And in the end, this effort of ours will be fruitful, and people will listen that it's much better to live than to die or to kill each other.
In fact, yes, a lot of things happened. Recently, we have the COVID-19, the occupation continue. We have the new occupation, which they call it the annexation of the West Bank or whatever. But as Rami says, we will continue to work and to talk until the leaders will follow us, because we have no other option. We want to prevent other death, other blood. And I believe we succeed in many places. We can see the young generations, they want to follow us and to join our activity because they believe in our message. And this is our message. We will continue to work, as I said, so we can look into the eyes of our grandsons and daughters that we did everything possible to make peace and to achieve peace. And this is what gives us the power to continue working and talking with each other in both sides and to spread this message all over the world, because it's not only for the Palestinians and the Israelis, it's for every human beings that we can talk, we can be friends, we can be partners, we can be brothers. We don't need to kill each other to exist.
Hey, Rami, there was a particularly touching series of conversations you had with your son, Yigal, where you were discussing his enlistment in the military. Now, I know you well enough, and I know there's no way the words, no, you can't, would ever come out of your mouth. But I think you had a beautiful seed of an idea that you planted in his head before he left. You said, the consensus is not moral, and we have to pause and say, wait a minute. I suspect, as a father myself who's dealt with teenagers, that seed of wisdom grew in your son. And I'm just curious, after all these years, how has all of this changed him?
Well, he's the jewel in the crown. He's my best product. And I admire him. I admire him first and most of all because his ability to face me. I told him, what will you do when you will be a soldier facing Bassam in a checkpoint? And he looked at me and said, you went. My brothers went, those who are telling me now not to go. And because you went, you are able to speak. You are allowed to speak. In the Israeli society, the place of serving in the army is so central that you will be marginalized if you don't go. And I want to be heard. So he went to the army in spite of the pressure, and the pressure was unbearable. He served as an instructor for young deprived kids on the verge of crime. He did miracles, a sacred word. I'm so proud of him. And when he got out, he joined the parent circle. He started giving lectures. He found himself a partner. Another boy with another very hard mind and knowing exactly what he should do. His name is Aramin. And they became brothers like me and Bassam, which gives me the most of joy ever. And they were both the main speakers in the alternative memorial ceremony about 2 years ago. They were amazing. And now he's in Sadaka Reut organization. He's taking groups to Jaffa to learn about the Palestinian history of Jaffa. He wrote a book, here it is, about Jaffa. Which is amazing because I cannot be more proud than I am of his ability to grow up under impossible circumstances in a crazy family and turn out to be what he is.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Hey, Bassam, when we've talked before, what has come up often in the Palestinian community is the concept of normalization. To the American, normalization seems like an innocuous term, but it's a derisive term aimed at Palestinians who appear to be working with the Israelis to the detriment of Palestinians. And therefore, you're seeing, if you are tagged with normalized behavior, that you're accepting of the occupation as normal. How has your work with the Parent Circle and the Combatants for Peace organizations, how has that impacted your role in the Palestinian community? Do they see you as a collaborator working with the other side?
To talk to the enemy, it means you go against your culture. You are swimming against the current, which is very difficult. But the Palestinians, they respect their fighters or prisoners, or the people who pay the highest price, who lost their family members. So we have this respect, we have this credit to talk to our people. And my answer always, I am fighting to achieve normalization, to live in a normal situation with the Israelis. But there is no normalization because we don't live in a normal situation. The occupied and the occupier, it doesn't work. There is no normal relationship between both sides. Even me and my brother Rami, we cannot live normally as friends or brothers or partners. So I think it's very difficult. And the people, I can understand them, of course, after, 10 or 20 years of dialogue, of meetings, of demonstrating together what we have now to renew the occupation, which is very disappointed. It means, what did you achieve? You just bring more occupation. What we get from these meetings in a fancy hotels, in resorts, or to travel outside, what's the result? And here become the rule of the Israelis. Always we said, when we meet each other, when we talk as human beings, now you understand my humanity, I understand yours. I go back to my occupation, to my checkpoints, to my refugee camps, and you go back to your democracy, then what happened? Nothing. So we want to move beyond dialogue, to act together. This is our common enemy, the occupation. And when the Palestinians see that we are fighting together in the West Bank, within the Palestinian societies, they come to support us. Just 1 week ago, we have the joint demonstration, Israelis and Palestinians from the Parent Circle and Combatants for Peace and other organizations against the plans of annexation of the West Bank. It was amazing how the people stand together against the same thing. We talk in the same voice. So this is how we face our society. And I never hear that I am a collaborator or traitor or whatever, because it's not easy to argue with someone like me in my society. I don't come from, I don't know, from outside to say to the Palestinians, this is right, this is wrong, this is how you need to fight, whatever. I am from here. I paid the highest price. I spent 7 years in jail. I lost my daughter because of the same case. So even the people who don't agree with you, but they respect you.
Thank you. Shelley, at this point, I'd like to point out, one of my careers in the past was I was in television news. And so I appreciate the difficulty in making the documentary format. And Within the Eye of the Storm was remarkable in that many documentaries enlist a narrator to tell the story, to fill in the gaps between the interviews. You took the hard road. You mean you had to have the subjects actually tell their stories in a cohesive way, which my guess means that for every minute we got to watch in the movie, you had hours of video that never made it into it. Is there anything or any concepts or is there any interactions that you had that never made it into the documentary that you wish you could have included?
Wow, there were so many. I think editing a film, at least at the beginning, is one of the most painful things for a filmmaker to do, because it truly is parting with a lot of it's a process of letting go, but alongside it, it's also a process of refinement, and that refinement is so critical, and that's why you need other people around you, so that you really do select the best things. You know, it was 8 years ago. I'm trying to think if there was one thing in particular. I can just say there were so many scenes. Perhaps what's more relevant is to capture something of the process. To begin with, I was really hoping to, you know, to try to include as many different perspectives as possible, to give something of the political climate. And it's, as the process went on, I realized that if anything is going to come out of this documentary, the best thing I can do is simplify, simplify, simplify. Because if I try to include too many things, it's going to become like all other films, which is a ping pong match between, you know, different sides. And the most important thing was really to stick to the essence, which is really these two remarkable men and their capacity to see beyond what's around them, and to reach out, and to reach out to anyone. And I thought if I can be of any service with making a film, it's to be as close to them as possible, so that the viewers that are with my eyes get to experience what I experience with them, and get to see what I see and hear with them, and to feel that intimacy and to touch hearts, because most of the time we leave films, not most of the time, but a lot of the time, when it deals with, you know, anything to do with politics, when it's, as soon as it touches it, as we know, people sit on either sides, and they firmly sit there. They've been sitting there for years, and watching a film that's just gonna give them, you know, the perspective of the other side, they're either not going to watch the movie or they're going to watch it like that, and nothing is going to sink in, and it exists on both sides. So the only way really to have any impact is to really touch people, is that they truly have an experience, and this is what I hope to do with the film, and I hope, you know, I managed in some way.
You know, Dean, if I say something, maybe Shelley filmed us for 1,000 hours for 6 years to have 1 hour film. If I know that, she will control me for 6 years. I'm not going to agree from the beginning. So I know how much it's painful for her to cut.
It's worth it, though. It's worth every minute of it. You know, Shelley, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's sort of the magic of what these two guys do, what the other members of groups like this do, is they change the landscape of the conversation. So when you have polarizing positions, and all of a sudden something enters into the conversation that is humanizing in ways that they haven't seen. It's, you know, I think it even for a second makes people think, just like, you know, Rami did with Yigal. You plant the seed, and I don't think a lot of people approach these kinds of interactions that way. I think they try to go in and win the argument, and I think, you know, you can win the argument from within by planting a seed and letting it grow. Christopher, I think we should probably open it up, because I've seen a lot of activity on the Q&A window. If you have some questions, you can introduce them. And
we've received a wealth of really great questions. Going through, kind of, a lot of them are touching on the Palestinian sort of reception of the film, or of the movement itself, or, you know, of the parent circle itself. So I was wondering if maybe Bassam, if you could touch on that. Oh, you're muted, my friend. Hold on.
Yeah, I think Rami did it.
Ah, there we go. We got it.
Can you repeat it again? Sorry.
Yeah, we've had a number of people submit questions regarding both the Palestinian, how have Palestinians received the film, and also what is the Palestinian perspective on the work that the Parent Circle does?
Okay, maybe Shelley can explain that better than me. We tried to screen it in 3 times in the West Bank, in Bethlehem, and once in Ramallah, I think, on the separation wall, and we expect like hundreds of people to come. That day, like 2 occasions. Once we have it start to rain, cats and dogs in that day, so we cannot screen it in that day. And the other day, I don't remember, it was clashes or something like this. But in general, from their reaction, my friends and others, they like it, they love it, and they wish that all the Israelis like Rami, which is they are not, It means they can see Rami as a partner. There is someone to talk to. You understand them, their struggle, which is very simple. Yeah, I don't expect something different from the Palestinians. I was in the first screening, in fact, in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv Cinematic alone. Rami was outside, he escaped by chance. And for the normal people also, it was a question. If Rami is in Ramallah, are they going to receive him in this warm reception? I said, are you crazy? In Ramallah, there is a lot of Arabs there. It means they are different. No, they are not different. They are the same. They will appreciate Rami the same. And this is what we see from our lectures among the Palestinians in the West Bank. After Rami talk, they don't believe that Rami is a Jew or an Israeli because he's very nice. This is the first Israeli that they talk to. He's not a settler. He's not in your uniform. So it gives a sign how much we don't know each other as two societies. So absolutely the Palestinians, they accept it. Yeah.
Oh, Rami, I think you wanted to, here, hold on, I can unmute you. 1 sec, there you go.
I would like to add two things. First, I resent this equation thing. Why do the Israelis accept the movie and the Palestinians are not accepting it? Why do we go to Jerusalem, we cannot go to Ramallah? The simple fact is that one people is dominating the other. One people is under the occupation and the other people is free. There is no equality between the occupier and the occupied. I remember one of the screenings in Bradford city in the UK. We did it in a mosque. And it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life because they stood in line to shake my hand. Humanity is existing in both sides. And we need to find every crack that we can find to get in and to widen it. And we need to stop judging people for what they cannot do, but we need to encourage people to do what they can do.
Thank you, Rami.
Oh
yeah, please, Shelley, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I started speaking in mute, so it took a moment. I will also add something to do with the screenings. As Rami said, the situation is very different. So clearly getting the consent of established places like cinemas is not possible. It's just not possible. And there is, of course, the issue of normalization. So what we could do is get the film into smaller settings and smaller groups, whether it's schools, private meetings, and that's basically how we spread it. And as Rami said, what's really striking is that with the screenings that did took place, the response was remarkable. And for me, what it revealed was really the hunger, just the hunger to meet Israelis like Rami, to actually see that there are Israelis like that. Because unfortunately, most of them are not exposed. The only Israelis they're exposed to is, people from the army, settlers. I mean, what do you expect? This is what they know. And when they see, Rami is exceptional anyway, but when they see a person that's speaking to them at eye level, and when they hear their story, and it was very moving to see the response, very moving to see the response, really. Yeah. And it was all over the world, like wherever we toured, this was one of the strongest things that came through, really the humanity behind it, how it's relevant to everyone, and it's not even specific to this conflict. It's really, it's something that's relevant everywhere.
Yeah.
It's an approach.
Yeah, it really, the heart of it really transcends this particular conflict, which that leads me really well into another question that was submitted by Gonka. Sorry if I butchered that name. What you two are doing, this is a question for Rami and Bassam. What you two are doing is remarkable and wonderful, and also unique. The problem we face in such polarized conflicts is not so much getting through to two remarkable individuals like the two of you, but to the real adamant hardliners that are basically stuck in their own positions. Can you think of any other such previously hardline individuals, apart from your close family and friends like Yigal, that your message has actually gotten through to? So are there other examples within the work that you do with the Parent Circle, or also with Combatants for Peace, Bassam, of individuals who have undergone a comparable sort of personal transformation like you have, from one really staunchly held position to another?
We are the example. I am the example myself. So we have thousands of people. I didn't born as a peacemaker or Rami lover. I will never love the occupation. I will never like the occupation. I will never accept the occupation. But people who have suffering, the soldiers, the ex-fighters or the fighters, they are the only one know what's the meaning of fear and death. They are the only one, they know what's the meaning of peace and achieving peace. So one of the co-founders, founder of Combatants for Peace, he was Islamic Jihad. And we have another one, he was Hamas. I talk of a lot of groups from Hamas people and Islamic Jihad people. They are exactly like us. They don't see hope. They don't believe that those people are going, they are a minority in the Israeli side who maybe don't want to occupy us. Maybe they want to live in a moral place, as they say, but they don't believe in this government or in the occupation mentality at all. So of course, yes, if the people see a hope, people who agree or support Oslo Agreement 20 years before, the same people who make the uprising 5 years after that, they want to see hope. And the Israeli government and this right-wing fascist government, their strategy, their ideology is to kill any hope in the Palestinian side. This is what Netanyahu announced. If they have hope, they will continue to act. They need to be no hope, then they will give up. And this is not a rented land. This is not a rented houses. It's ours. We own it. We will never give up. This is very simple. For that, I think we touch a lot of, let me say, radical people, people that they don't know, very hard people, and they become leaders in a non-violent struggle together with Israelis.
Bassam, I think that's actually, Rami, I think you may have said something similar in the film about without hope, we die. And that was, yeah, that was really, really profound. Rami or Shelley, did you want to?
I think we are all victims of a victimhood mentality. And each and every one of us made the journey from where we were. We were brainwashed. We were the subjects of a brainwashing system that influenced us, that hid the other side from us, until the moment where we opened our eyes, we sobered up, and we start walking the walk, doing the journey. And the journey is a very long journey, a bumpy road with no shortcuts, and you need to overcome inner feelings, inner conceptions, inner history that is within your head and your mind and your whole system, and then be able to see the other guy next to you as human, as equal to you. And you need to respect him as you want to be respected. This is a very long journey, which most of the people are incapable of doing it. And those who are capable of doing it can move from one side to the other very easily. And the work that we do at the Parrot Circle, at the Combatants for Peace, of all the peace movements around us and around the world, is exactly this. We need to push people to open their hearts, to open their minds, to open their logic, and see that we are not the wisest people on earth. We are not much cleverer than they are. We are talking about humanity. We are talking about prospects. We are talking about the ability to stop this endless cycle of violence and revenge and retaliation. And we are talking sense. So people listen.
Thank you, Rami. Another question that keeps popping up, and I think it's a question in pretty much all of our minds if we're watching, anybody who's watching the political situation right now, the question that arises from annexation, or this push for annexation, is it has the idea, and this probably transcends kind of the scope of this documentary, so forgive me if it does, and we can move on to another question, but of the viability of a two-state solution at this juncture, or of what does the prognosis of a one-state solution look like? I know that's a rather loaded political question to give at 10 minutes before we're set to finish the webinar. But if you guys wanted to lean in on that a little bit, those questions have repeatedly popped up during this webinar.
I think it's
This is Rami's department, yes.
I think it's a way to avoid the truth. It really doesn't matter. The question of the number of states is artificial and irrelevant today when Israel controls the 100% of the land with the support of the American president. So the question of one state or two states or 10,000 states, it's not, a state is not something sacred. A state is not something that you are willing to kill or die for. A state is a tool to give you services. You pay your taxes, you get security, you get roads, you get many things. You don't kill for it. Ever since the World War I. One thing is essential. We can have a federation, we can have confederation, we can have whatever technical solution. This is only technical issues. One thing is extremely essential, and without it, nothing will work. And this thing is the word respect. Now, the minute you are able to respect the guy next to you, exactly as you want to be respected, all the rest are technicalities that can be issued. And I, with all my heart, I fully support this one word instead of two states or one state or whatever. The word respect. Once we, and I always say, the end of every meeting that we have, the happiest day of my life will be when this guy next to me, Mr. Bassam and Rami, will be my president, my king, my emperor, whatever he wants to be, without the need to be re-elected, because he is the right man for the job. And this should prevail.
Thank you, Rami. I have another job.
Is this an announcement?
Right. Are you announcing something? Let's see. There have been really so many great questions. There was one here. Okay, here we go. Because of the unimaginable loss of your daughters, your pain cut through to deep truths. How can you help others face their own pain and their own losses?
You know, it's unbearable pain. You think you are not going to survive it. It's unbelievable. And luckily, because we are human beings, we have the ability to think and to recognize that we must be bigger than our pain and our sadness. We need to survive and to continue our life. We have other kids. They have the right to grow up in a normal situation. But we know this pain, and if you meet any bereaved father or mother, directly there is a connection. It's a line of pain forever. You will never heal. You know this feeling, and you know how this man or woman feel. In fact, it's the anger. Anger is there. Some people ask me if you are angry. Of course, I am angry, and I will continue to be angry because this anger is the motivation to continue spread the message of humanity and peace and reconciliation. If you can use this anger in a different way to make it revenge, then you are not any different from others. This is most of the people act. I wrote on the grave of my daughter Abir that your killer will die and you will live longer than him. No one knows his name, no one will mention his name, no one will thought about him. And I promise I will make everyone around the world to hear the name Abir and to ask why she killed and to spread this name and this message, because it's forbidden to kill kids under any circumstances. I don't want to build a Palestinian state on the ruins of the Palestinian kids or the Israeli kids. So this is the memory of my daughter, of Smadar, to spread a message that those kids, they don't have anything against each other, they don't know each other, but it's the same killer, the same criminal who take off the lives of our daughters. It's the occupation. In spite between Abir and Smadar, it's 10 years. This is our common enemy. And if there is no occupation, we are not going to die. We are not going to kill each other, even if we hit each other, even if we shout at each other, but not to kill each other. Yeah.
Thank you, Bassam. Rami, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
He's a great man and he speaks pure wisdom. And when we meet bereaved families, sometimes we meet very angry people. Sometimes we meet people who want revenge from both sides. All we can tell them that our daughters are standing behind our backs, pushing us forward. This unnecessary killing, this futile killing, without any meaning, without any gain, without any positive aspect, we have the mission and the vision to show an example that it can be different. We show that it will be different. The people will be able to rise up above their pain. The pain is there. As Bassam said, it will never go away. It's 59 seconds of every minute of your life. You don't heal, and this is a wound that will never close. But you can do something with this energy. This energy, which is very much similar to the nuclear energy, you can use it in order to make good. Instead of killing each other, instead of like the nuclear energy, you can bring darkness and destruction. You can also bring hope and power and energy. And this is what we do in the Parent Circle and the Combatants for Peace. All the peace movement in Israel, which are today struggling so very hard to exist, because we are facing a very dark ages, a very dark government, very dark forces. This is a battle for our very being. And these are the days which it will all come to a conclusion. And if we will be able to stand up against evil, against darkness, then we will survive. If not, you will have to accept us as your guests.
Thank you, Rami.
Thank you.
Well, we are almost out of time. So Dean, if you would like to close.
Yeah, thanks, Christopher. And Rami and Bassam and Shelley, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this. You could watch Within the Eye of the Storm multiple times, and I think it will hit you just as hard because it is a roadmap for how people should be. It is a masterclass in what humanity should be, and something that we should all take as our North Star and try to become. Before we say goodbye, I would like to let you know this year has been especially challenging for the Parent Circle. Funding cutbacks from different sources, the global pandemic, and the economic impact from the pandemic have hurt our ability to meet all of the needs of the Parent Circle's programs. That said, as you saw today, they continue their work. In fact, they surprise us consistently and constantly with their drive to push forward. And they are making a positive impact. Just to give you an example of that impact, their dialogue meetings, where one Palestinian and one Israeli member together tell their stories, have reached more than 200,000 Israelis and Palestinians since they began in 2002. Most who attend say their knowledge, understanding, and empathy for the other have been positively changed after attending the meetings, planting seeds. They are changing minds one heart at a time. They're showing us that there's a different way. We would like to thank everyone for attending today, especially Shelley, Bassam, and Rami. Remember, if you'd like to link to today's session, make sure to sign up for or to receive updates from us. Christopher's provided a link in the chat box along with links to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And please forward the recording of this session and the link to view the film for anyone you think might get something out of hearing Rami and Bassam. And if you are so moved, please consider supporting the work of the Parent Circle. To make a donation online, please visit our website at the link Christopher has provided in the chat box, or by going to www.parentcirclefriends.org. Take care, stay safe, and enjoy the rest of your day or evening for those of you not joining in the U.S.
Thank you, Dean, and thank you, the American Friends of the Parent Circle. You are the greatest.
You are.
You
guys make us better.
One thing.
Yes, Shelley, please.
Yeah. I just want to continue, literally to take 1 minute, just to continue from the question of how do we deal with the pain of loss, and to add the question, what can we do to avoid it? And I think that's a question that every single person needs to ask themselves. What am I doing to avoid the next death on both sides?
Thank you. Thank you all.
That was a great point, Shelley. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Goodbye.
All right, and thank you for everybody for joining and for your great questions.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.